that started.
All right, guys. One second. I get the joy of having you guys for the last session of the day after 2 days of mind melting, mental overload of stuff that you've learned, and now I get you for the very last session. So I'm going to do my best to keep you guys interested and to give you something worth learning on this last one. So I am Rory Fundora. I'm an Apple Distinguished Educator. This is my 7th year attending iSummit, 6th year presenting. It happens to be one of my favorite conferences to be at, so I'm really glad to be here. Our session is going to be stop, collaborate, and listen or learn. So of course, you know what I've got to do, guys.
Yeah.
So just to wake you up a little bit. The ad's going to come up. So of course I have to do it, and you're welcome because this will be in your head for the rest of the day, right?
Right.
And for our cameraman, I'm sure you don't even know who this is, but I'll show my age here. All right. So just had to do that. Just had to share that love with you all. All right. So the first thing that we're going to be doing today is talking about back channeling. How many of you guys are doing any back channeling in your classrooms? I know Sharon's been with me for a couple of sessions, so she knows that I do this already. Who knows what back channeling is? All right. So what I do with my students, whether I'm teaching a class of students or I'm teaching a class of teachers, is I have a back channel going. And all this is an area where people can be dialoguing. I use Today's Meet. Be careful when you're typing this. Please make sure you're spelling it M-E-E-T, or else you're going to go to a very different website. But I use Today's Meet / iSummit 7, which is the 7th session of iSummit. So if you want to go there, that's where you can post any questions. What I like about Today's Meet is the fact that I can set the duration of the room. I can set it for an hour. I can set it for a week. I can set it for a month, or I can set it for a year. So when I'm doing PD, like I'm doing now, is I set it for a month. So that room will be there for a month. If you have any questions, you can post your questions there. If you have any thoughts, I showed you something today and you want to show me how you used it in your classroom or great ideas that you had, I leave that room open for a month and I will go back and check it. The other thing I like about Today's Meet is the fact that you can print out a transcript of it. So before the room closes, you can print a transcript and you would have every entry that was put in there for the whole time that the room was open. So how can I use that in my classroom is that I can leave that room open for a year. My students know that that's always where they go to do their back channeling. Maybe I have a question of the day that they have to discuss. Maybe it's a current event. However I want to use that, I can have that room up and going. I can moderate it. I can go through and reread it. I can print out that transcript. If I've got Johnny who's misbehaving on it, I can bring him that attention. Bring attention to that behavior, deal with it, whatever. So I use Today's Meet for back channeling. So if you want to go there, you can. So what we're going to be talking about today is collaboration. And how many of you guys, I know we're all educators, how many committees have you guys been on this year? At least 2, 3, 4, sometimes even more. So when we're working on things, we're always working on teams, whether we're grade level teams or content area teams or we're on a committee. So why do we expect our students to work individually on everything when we don't? The real world doesn't. The top 3 skills that employers are looking for from their employees now is problem solving, critical thinking, collaboration, and teamwork. Okay? So that's something that's really important for our students to learn. So that's what we're going to talk about. But there are hundreds and hundreds of tools out there to use for collaboration. Some things I use, you might not work for you. You might use another tool. There is no right or wrong to it. It's what works for you and what you can apply in your classroom. There's 3 things that I look for when I'm looking at a tool. Now, I come from the public education world, so the first thing I'm going to look for is free. Free is really good. The second thing I want to look for is I want to look for something that's platform agnostic. I want it to work on any device that those students have because in the ideal world, yes, every student should be walking around with this in their hands. But that's not reality anymore, is it? They might have a laptop, they might have their phone, they might have an iPad, or they have another variation of tablet. You don't know what they're going to have when they come into your room if it's not school supply. So what I always look for is something that's platform agnostic, something that can work on whatever device they have. And a lot of the things I look for are always cloud-based, because that means they can use it on the device that they're using in your classroom. They can go to grandma's house and log into the computer and use it there. They can go home and log into it. Whatever device they have access to, if it's web-based, they can gain access to it. And the last thing I always look for is ease of use. If I can log into the tool and right out of the gate, I can figure it out within the first 5 minutes, then I know my students are going to be able to figure out in the first 45 seconds that they have it. And then I can use it. If I have to stumble through it, then I know my teachers are going to stumble through it. I know my students are going to stumble through it. And then there's just going to be frustration across the board. So like I said, 3 things: price, platform agnostic, and ease of use are the 3 things that I'm looking for. So a couple of tools that I'm going to show you today. The first one is Google Classroom. How many of you guys are using Google Classroom? You're using it already? You like it?
I really do.
Google released Google Classroom, I think it's almost about a year, maybe 9 months to a year ago now. It's one of their newest tools. What Google Classroom gives you the ability to do with a Facebook type feel, social media feel, you're able to build your classroom where you can share resources, where you can have assignments. It's great in the paperless classroom because then your students have a direct way to submit their assignments. You can look at an assignment quickly and see if it's done, who hasn't done it. So since you're using it, what's some of your feedback from using Google Classroom?
When it first, I probably jumped on pretty early when it was released, so I was excited when little updates were made.
Like co-teaching?
Yeah, but I really do like it, and I like that it makes a drive folder for each of the students that are added automatically.
Absolutely.
And then I'll attach forms so that we can I give all my tests and quizzes like that. So, it's really nice, and it's free. And all of our students in the whole charter school system have Gmail accounts, so
that makes it even better.
So easy, yeah.
So how many of your schools are Google-based schools? Like your students are all using Gmail and everything? So that's awesome, because one of the great things about having that Google background already is the fact that more and more resources are letting you log in with your Google credentials, which is great because then you don't have to remember 12 different usernames and 12 different passwords. You log in with your Google account and then you go from there. It also blends together a lot of things. And like he said, Google Classroom, the best thing that it does, one of the biggest pluses, was how it organizes the work that you create with it. So back when we first started doing paperless classrooms, you would have your students email in their assignments. And your email boxes would get full and get cluttered very quickly, right? Then we were like, okay, well we can do Google Drive folders, do shared folders, and all your students can drop their work into your shared folder. But that got really messy really quick too. The advantage to using Google Classroom is if I go to my Drive, Google Drive, I see a folder that says Classroom. If I double click on that folder, I see my classes, the 2 classes that I have, right? So here's our Stop, Collaborate, and Listen class. If you were members of my class, you submitted work, it would automatically inside this folder create a folder for you where you would, per assignment, would have your work. So it's nice and neat and organized. So it makes it so much easier for us and for the students. The other thing I like about Google Classroom is that they just released where you can do co-teaching now. So if he and I are sharing a class, he can be on that as a teacher, I can be on that as a teacher, we can both have access to those students. Again, it's web-based, so the students can access this information wherever they are. So when they go home and they say, oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Fundora, I didn't know I had homework tonight. Oh, yeah, you did. And when you were logged in on Google doing anything else, you're watching YouTube videos all night long, you could have hopped over to your classroom and you would have seen all of your assignments and what was due. So from your teacher point of view, you have your stream. So in here I have links to a lot of the folders, the apps and the tools that I'm going to show you. I have my students. So right now I only have my daughter, who's my lovely demo assistant over here. So, and then if I come into About, it talks about the classroom, and this is where I can add any materials or whatever. So I'm going to come back to my stream and look at my assignments. So the first assignment that we're going to do is an African Studies assignment on Uganda. And we're saying, working in your teams, compare everyday life of a teenager in Uganda to life of a teenager in the United States. Research life in Uganda and create a Prezi with that information and be prepared to present a 5-minute team presentation. Okay? So we're building in all this thing. They have to work as a team. You'll notice over here it says when it's due tomorrow. 0 are done, or 0 done and 1 is not done. Now if I had 50 kids in my classroom, I could quickly look here and I could see 30 of them are done, 20 are not done. I can click here and I can see what students haven't submitted their work. So I can sit there and say, you know, you really gotta, don't forget, Friday's your, you know, the day it's due, get your assignment in, and it's really quick for you to be able to look. Right here is your class code, and this is how your students join your classroom. Now you could have 6 different classes depending on what you teach. And you would have your classroom and your students would join your classroom. And what's great about that is they log into one spot and they see every classroom that they have. They see your class and Mrs. Jones' class and whoever else they have and their stream. All right? Anything you want to add about Google Classroom before we move on from that?
No.
Okay. I'll tell you, Google Classroom, like I said, is about 9 months old. They have said that at the 1-year mark, they're going to make some major revisions to it and changes to it. So it's going to be very interesting to see what they do, because I think this is a product that they threw out there in the market really quickly and that they've done a lot of research and development on. So I'm really excited to see what the features are going to be and how that grows. I think you might see a little bit more bells and whistles like you have in some of the other paid learning management systems, which would be great. So now we have this assignment, and we've got different ways that you can work on them and everything. So the next thing we're going to talk about is Google Drive. How many of you guys are using Google Drive with your students? Okay. So you know you can have a Google Doc, right? You can have a Google Sheet. You can have a Google Slide presentation. And you can share those tools with the other students. So I can have a Google Doc that maybe I share with the other 4 students that I have on my team. And all of us can be collaborating at the same time. Now another important thing that you want to be able to look at when your kids are working collaboratively is how can I make sure that all of my students are participating, right? Because how many times have we been on a committee and 4 other people on our committee aren't doing anything and we're doing all the work, you know, or when we were in school, it's the same thing. When you're using things like Google Docs, you have a revision history. So I can go back up and I can pull up that document and I can see the revision history and I can see who worked on it. So I'm going to just pull up this essay really quick. And if I come up here and I say see revision history, I'll see down here on June 10th this is what happened, on June, you know, whatever, and it lists all the way through here what student did it, and you can actually go back to those revision histories and you can see what they added at that time. So at a quick glance, if you look here and I see Rory, I'm going to look at the other 4 people on her team and say, why is she the only one doing any work here? You know, or I can look here and say, yep, look, everybody's been active on it. Everybody's been doing something with it. The other thing that's great about Google Drive, and I'm sure you guys know if you're using it, is the fact that 1, it backs up and saves automatically. So you don't have to worry about losing that work either. And the advantage to using revision history is that if I come in here and I'm that last person on the team and I'm really mad and I delete everything that the students worked on, I can go back to my revision history and restore what was there so they don't lose anything. So that's really great about revision history. Any questions so far? All right. The other thing I like about using Google Docs and the Google Suite, we'll call it, for working collaboratively is the fact that I can do things like I can make comments. So I'm going to close my revision history here. And you see right here I have a comments feature. And here's a comment that I wrote. Right? In this paragraph you got a little wordy. Well, now I'm going to come down here and I'm going to say, I'm going to highlight this text. I'm going to add a comment. Let's say, whoops. And I'm going to say, are you sure? Whatever. And I can add that comment there. And it's going to tag exactly that part of the document that I wanted with my comments. So as a teacher, if you're shared on this document too, you can go through and you can make your comments. What we do in our district is we do 3 then me. We do peer reviews. We say, okay, 3 of your peers need to review this work before you turn it in. So that way your peers can go through and they can make, instead of going in and like highlighting this word and making it pink and saying, hey, check for my pink revisions or whatever, they can go in and they can just put comments on here. And then you have the option to resolve it. So once you've fixed whatever that is or ignored it or whatever you want to do, you hit resolve and that comment goes away. So your peers can go through and they can make whatever comments. You can redo your rewrites or whatever, and that's all through commenting. Okay. Just keeping my notes here so I can stay on task. Excuse me. How many people are using Prezi? Anybody using Prezi? Okay. Did you know that Prezi has a collaborative area now too?
I saw that.
Yeah, it's something that came out in their new revision, and I think that took Prezi to the next level. Students enjoy doing Prezis because they're cool. They've got a lot of that wow factor for the kids, but now you can have up to 10 people working on a single Prezi. Now, there's a caveat to that. If they're working on the iPad version of the Prezi, the iPad actually checks out that Prezi, pulls it down. Only one person can be working in it at a time. But if they're on a laptop or a desktop, up to 10 people can be working on it at a time. And you can actually go in and you can say, I'm sorry, what's your first name?
Josh.
Josh. I can say, show me what Josh is working on, and I can find him on my list, and it will take me right to that part of the Prezi that he is working on at that time. So as a teacher, again, there's my checks and balances, making sure I can see that all the team members are doing things. Okay? So Prezi has that collaborative feature. Prezi also now is fully integrated with Google Classroom, and you can submit through the iPad app. You can actually submit your Prezi directly into the assignment folder, which is really great. So there's a lot of integration there between the
And it'll pull, like, as you click on it, it'll pull the Prezi up. It doesn't, like, export it to anything.
Nope, it just pulls up that Prezi. So that's really cool. Prezi, just so you know, the terms of service, are we all middle and high school here? Elementary? Okay. Only downside to Prezi is it is 13 and over. So take that as you want. Some people like to ignore terms of service.
Our parents to sign our permission.
Yeah, you can do that, and that protects you as the school, but Prezi, if they find out that it's a 13 and under account, they will delete it.
Well, what will we get?
It's our account.
Oh, okay, so you just let them use that. That's
Or we can get parents to create an account that they will allow their child
Yes.
to have access to.
That's the smart way to do
Yeah.
it. Absolutely, yes. Let's see. The other thing that we're going to look at is Padlet. Anybody using Padlet? Padlet, I don't know if anybody remembers Wall Washer. I think it was called before. Wall Washer.
Yeah.
That's what it was before. I'm a big person where especially if I'm brainstorming, I have idea paint in my office where I can actually, my walls in my office are like a dry erase board. I can write all over it, and that's how I think things out. So this gives kind of the students the same way. They get this wall, and they can post and kind of brainstorm things out, and you can add people to their wall. And again, here's that checks and balance in. So I can see on my dashboard, I can see all the things that Mallory has done on that wall. So again, I have that ability to be able to go through and see what my students are doing and making sure everybody is active. So let's pull up this wall. So you see, this is the wall that she started creating. She's got some links in here. She's got images in here. And if you click on them, it'll tell you who did it. So it'll say that I did this one, and then I have a link attached to this, and here's my source. If I click on that source button, it'll take me directly out to the link of that. So as your students are brainstorming their project or putting information out there, this is how they can do it. I've seen teachers using this for like current events. This might be the first thing they're doing. This might be their bell ringer in the morning. They're using Padlets for this. You can have unlimited number of Padlets, and they don't delete until you delete them. So if you create them as a teacher, you share it out to your students, they have access to them. And you can, I know there's been a couple of people that have done some Padlet sessions, and you can get pretty fun with them. You can change the backgrounds on them, you can make them look different. And then when they're done, you have the ability to be able to export them out as an image or a PDF, so you can still capture it statically, or you can just leave them up here to go. Anybody using Padlet currently in their classrooms? How are you guys using them?
I use it for like, we respond to a book that we're reading. I create the wall, so I put the name of the book, and then I put links to like the book trailer about the author. And so we might have this chapter, and I might either say what stuck with you about that chapter, or they just put whatever they want and respond. So we've done it with that, and I've used it for math, for like a word problem or a story problem, and then they, write and discuss how they solve that problem. Mainly I've used it for literature though.
That would work for number talks too, if you put a problem and then they put their strategies that they use.
Sure. And do you find that your students enjoy using it?
Yeah,
Pretty easy for them to use.
yeah. Now we also, because we had book buddies in California, and we were doing the global read aloud. So I sent the link to the teacher, and so then they could, all put in, communicate or collaborate.
Again, that's the advantage, that it's web-based, it's out there, anybody can have access to it, so that's a great use of it, where you're able to share that out with schools across the world.
Right.
Say, especially say with this project, say if you could partner up with a school in Uganda, and they could be adding feedback to this too. So it takes it to a whole global level also,
Right.
which is really great. All right. The next thing we're going to look at is Google Keep. Has anybody messed with Google Keep before? Okay. So Google Keep is along the similar lines of Evernote, a more basic version of Evernote where you can create notes. And what we encourage our students to do is you create a note for the classes that you have. That's where you can keep like your to-do list or anything like that. You can label them so you can go out quickly and search your notes. Again, this is tied to your Google account. So it backs up, it saves, it's automatically there all the time. But then you have the ability to be able to share notes too. So you could create a note for that project that you're working on, and you can share it with your students. They can be adding content to it. And then what I love is that after you've got this whole note done, if you click on your More button, it says Copy to Google Doc. You just click that, it will take all the information that you had on this note, and it will open a Google Doc with that information on it. So
is that tied to Google Classroom or not?
No, this is separate. It's a Google tool, but it's not tied to Classroom. But it is part of the Google Suite. And then there's an app, there's an iOS app called Google, it's Go Keep for Google. And it does this, it'll download, you can use your notes and everything on your iOS apps. So your iPhones, your iPads.
That's good, taking notes.
And I like the fact that you can, just like with Evernote, you can label them. And it's just a little bit more basic so the kids, like I'm a diehard Evernote user. I use it for everything. If I lost my Evernote account, I'd be lost. But this is kind of a stripped down, simpler version of it for the students. And like I said, I love that they can share their notes, they can be working on them together. All right. The other thing I like is that this note Mallory shared with me, so I can't delete it. I can remove myself from it, but I can't delete her work or her note. So that's a good thing. What are your guys' thoughts so far?
Good.
What would be the few things that we've shown you so far? Padlet, Keep, Classroom, the Google Docs suites. What do you think some ways you can use in your classroom? Like something that jumps out at you?
Something different than what you said?
Yeah. Something that you said, oh, I could do that.
Well, that's because I use Padlet, but when you mentioned, ticket out the door or opening, I teach 3rd grade, so that could be something in the morning that they could reflect on. If they watched a video or something, I could really, really use it more than what I do in that classroom.
And with Padlet?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying with Padlet, yeah.
Great. Anybody else have any ideas? Is that something that just jumped at you? Yeah. All right.
Can you add, like in the Keep, is it tied to the, like if they're in your class, like a Google Classroom, it's not linked at all, or can you?
No, not yet. Who knows?
I would like a way to post all their notes digitally, and then they can just pull it off and add their own. But I don't know of like a Google native thing, or if I just have to use a third party. Which I'm fine with.
If you created one note and then shared it with your class, then they could do that.
Yeah.
They could copy, take your stuff and then copy it to a Google Doc and then run with it from there.
Yeah. Is that a?
It's just keep.google.com.
Yeah. So you can add an image, but they would be adding whatever they wanted.
Right.
But I could share them like as a collaborator. So.
Sure. Like you could start that note, you could put whatever information you wanted in your images, and then you could share that with your class, and then they would have your information, and then you could go from there.
This is cool.
Yeah. And like I said, it's a little bit of that wow factor. They can color code them, so maybe for some of your learners, it's a little bit easier for them to look at their whole screen and see, all my blue notes are my world history notes. All my yellow notes are my science notes. So for your visual kids, it'll help them too. All right. The next thing I'm going to show you is a web page called Bounce. It's bounceapp.com. How many times have you ever been, you found a website, maybe you're working on something and you know, you're like, oh, you want to share it with your partner or your teammate or whatever on this website, and then you get, the teammate gets that website and they're like, well, I don't want to read the whole thing. Why, what part of this was interesting to you? What did you want to show me on this? And that's what's great with Bounce, is that it gives you the ability to take a website, make some annotations on it, and then send that website out to people, and then they can see your website with your annotations on it. So let's go out to, let's go to CNN.com. It's kind of my go-to today for some reason. And the network's going about as slow as we are all going right now. Good, it's coming. All right, so let's do a search since we're going to stay on this African Studies project. Let's do a search out here for Uganda. Trying to find an article. Well, we'll just go to the main page and grab an article. It'll be easier. Trying to find one that's positive. It's kind of hard. Okay. So here's this article that I want to share with my team, right? So I come up here and I copy the URL, okay? And I go over here to my Bounce app and I paste that URL right here, okay? And I tell it to grab a snapshot. And I really love coders that have a sense of humor. Wow, that's a nice URL. We're grabbing a screenshot. Meanwhile, watch the bouncing ball. And it takes a couple of minutes depending on the site and the speed of your network. So what it does is it pulls up a screenshot of that website. And it gives you the ability here, you see where it says click to add a title. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to say NBA Finals, whatever. It's asking me who I am.
Win. Yes, Cavs win.
And then I can come through here and I go through my article and I'm like, okay, this is important. And you see I have the crosshairs.
Yeah.
I just click and hold and drag around the area. And then I can say, add my comment and say, okay. And I go back through the article. Maybe this is important.
Can you take a snapshot of a text? Or does it have to be a...
you can upload an image, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. You can upload an image. So I go through this, I make my annotations, and then I say, okay, I'm about done. So I say save, and I get this little link here. And now I can take this link, I can post it up to my Google Classroom stream, I can post it on my shared note that we just looked at with Keep, I can post it to a shared document, wherever I want to post it, but I have this link. And I'll come here, and I'll just paste this link, and this is what it will look like to your partners that you send this to. So here's your annotations.
And
when you mouse over it, here's your notes. I said, wow, read this, right? So your students you can tell your students, go out to this website and I want your thoughts on it. They can grab parts of that website, make their notes on it, and then send you the link. So you can have 10 kids doing the same website and just see what parts did they find interesting, what were their comments on it. Maybe you're using it for current events. Go to your town newspaper, pull up today's articles. I want you to go through and I want you to find me the who, what, where, when, and whys, or whatever you're focusing on with your current events. And then you make their annotations, they just send you that link, and then you have access to it.
And that doesn't have anything to do with Google, but that...
No, this is something separate. This is called bounceapp.com.
Okay. So it has to be an app.
It's a website. It just happened to be called Bounce App, but it's a website.
Okay.
But you were asking about doing an image, so let's do this. So here's my essay. I'm going to screenshot part of this. And let's go back to Bounce. Right here where it says you can also upload an image.
Okay.
So I'm going to go ahead and upload that screenshot. What's great is you can also share these out, so then there's your text, and you can do the same thing to it. I can add my comments throughout that text. So yes, absolutely, you can take that. What's great is if you're using Twitter in your classroom, if you have a class stream of Twitter, they can actually tweet out that link directly from here. But other than that, you can just share that link with whoever wants it.
Do you need a login? Like, if you create a login with them, do they archive what you've done?
No, not currently. If it partners with Notable, it's the same writers from Notable.
Okay.
So if you were using Notable, you would have access to that. But without it, it's just kind of
right there for now and then. Does it go away after you've left?
I haven't seen the links disappear, and I've been using it for about 2 months now, and I haven't seen any links disappear. So I did tweet them and ask them what their purging policies are, but I haven't heard back yet. So I can tell you that at least 2 months, you're good.
You could always save it as a PDF and keep it for later.
Absolutely, sure. Just print it to a PDF and save it, or screenshot it, whatever. Absolutely.
That's great.
You like that one?
Yes. I mean, even in 3rd grade, text evidence, summarizing main idea, details.
Absolutely. Even simple down to, here's a paragraph, I want you to highlight all the nouns, I want you to pull out all the adjectives, whatever it is. Absolutely, they can do it that way too. And again, it's just a little bit more fun for them.
Yeah.
So, all right. So I wanted to take a look at some of the apps. It's the same thing, but the tools that we've already looked at. We're going to see if my Wi-Fi or my AirPlay is going to last long enough, just so I can show you the iOS versions of these. Let me do this. Alright. So you'll see Classroom. Classroom has a native app for iOS. And when they come up, they would see whatever classrooms they have. I can tap on the class, and I have the same view as what I do as when I'm on the web base. Okay, so I can see my students, I can see my stream, I can add assignments, I can add announcements, whatever I need to do, I can do from wherever I am, because it's web-based. Okay? The GoKeep, this app acts a little funny sometimes, so we're going to hope that it's going to work real well. Click the little light bulb that goes faster. You go whatever. Oh. Not really. This is the free version. There is a paid version of this app. Come on. Or you could just go web-based to keep.google.com. This is just the app that they have for it. And it's not going to act right. There we go. So you see all the same notes that you saw web-based are on here also. Everything syncs together. Okay. Of course, you've got your Google Drive. So you have access to all of your folders that are up there, all your shared spaces, all your collaborative documents, whatever it is. You have them up here. And you can go through and you can add a new doc or whatever you want to add to it. Prezi. So here's that same shared Prezi that I was working on. Now because I'm on the iPad now, it's going to check that Prezi out. If you tried to access it, you wouldn't be able to until I saved it and put it back. But you would have access to all your Prezi. You can edit it and modify it.
I have a login for Prezi since it links with Google. Can you log in with your Google?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
And more tools I'm discovering are allowing that Google authentication. So what we're talking about is, when we said before, if your students already have Google accounts, that any of these tools, they can log in using those Google credentials, even if it's not a Google product, like Prezi, because it allows that to authenticate for you, so they don't have to have a separate account for that. So, Bounce and Padlet, you'll see I have icons here for them, so they look just like a regular app, but all they are is web shortcuts. Now, does everybody know how you make web shortcuts on your iOS devices? Okay, just making sure. So if you just tap on Bounce, it takes them right out to it. And they can do the same thing, mocking up that screenshot of the website or that image or anything that you've given them. Now here's a fun thing. Well, here's the thing. Because now you have it on your iPads, they can be out, taking pictures. Let's say, go out and take pictures of geometric objects in the real world. They can be capturing the pictures. They can upload those pictures and do that same kind of commenting and annotation on it. Or anything like that. So that's just another advantage to having it on a mobile device where they can actually go out, or their phone, or any other tablet. They can do it that way too. And then, of course, Padlet works the same way. And Padlet passes Google credentials also. One thing I do like about Padlet is that you're able to set it, if I can remember where it is. You can actually set moderation. So you can moderate your posts on Padlet. Did you know you could do that?
I just found that out this week.
Yeah.
Is that new?
I think it is, because I just happened to stumble on it a couple weeks ago when I was working on my presentations. So I think it is a new feature. What's great about this is maybe you're using your Padlet wall as more of an assessment, right? So you can moderate their posts and only approve the ones that are correct.
Okay.
So then you can say, okay, check the wall. If your answer's not up there, try again. So, or you can use it obviously for making sure everybody's behaving and their comments are appropriate. You can turn to moderation, but you can use that moderation for other things. And this is where you go in and you add people. Bless you. This is where you can go in and you can add your people who you want to share this Padlet with, and then you can give them the ability to either view it only or to edit it. So this is where you do all that. You can make them password protected. Padlet's really expanded what they can do with them, especially since it was Wall Wisher. All right. You guys are so quiet. We got through that really quick. So what are some of your thoughts? Bounce? Yeah, I actually happened to stumble on that one about a week ago, and I was like, score, that one was awesome.
I attach websites to assignments on iTunes University, but sometimes I feel like I'm answering the same question over and over again because it's too much on a website. So if I could even do it, as it comes up, like I keep getting the same question about, I can't find what I'm looking for on this website. So I go, okay, I need to break this down a little bit more.
Sure. And even if you just step them through, here, click here first, then go here, whatever it is, you can absolutely do that with that. So it's a great thought about it. Yeah. How about you guys? Anything standing out to you?
I like that Prezi has that you can use the Gmail account or the Google account. Some students that I have will say, can I make a Prezi for this? I'm like, yeah, if you know, but I didn't know enough about it to just roll it out to everyone, and I didn't want them to only have that one platform, but that's really nice. He already had his own, but it'd be nice to just say, hey, now that you know.
Right. And then you can sit there and say, hey, share that Prezi with me, and then you can also be watching them.
The coolest, it was a metaphor for the cell, but he used Clash of Clans, so he took his own pictures of Clash of Clans and then put it in. And
nice.
It was neat to say, well, this thing is really the nucleus because it.
That's cool. Awesome.
Very cool.
It's amazing what they can come up with when we allow them to have that freedom to do it.
I said, think of a model, whatever you think.
What other thoughts do you guys have? Are any of you letting your kids work in teams yet on any kind of projects? Some ideas.
My kids do, for every unit that we do on our iTunes University courses, there's a group project for every one. So they've used Padlet, they use Lino, what's that, Byboard? They've used Byboard.
Bagel.
Yeah. The only problem with that is you can't always tell who's writing, so it gives them a little bit of freedom to do something they shouldn't when you can't tell where it's coming from.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I give mine free reign to do whatever they want. iMovie is another one, so.
What grade level do you have?
Fifth.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I used to be in fifth. And then I moved on, we're at the same school.
And now you're third grade, you said? Are you letting them work collaboratively
Yeah,
on things?
yeah. I started out the year, I was like, okay, I didn't realize what I could do with them coming from fifth with the iPads, and so we started out kind of slow. And then I saw that, wow, they were doing just as much, you know, like we're on different halls now, so when they can't figure it out and I can't figure it out, I'll give them the iPad, you know, they'll go down and they'll find kids in her room and she'll figure it out, or, you know, the kids will figure it out for them.
When we started introducing collaborative learning with our teachers, you know, the whole thing was, well, then I don't know all those tools.
Right.
I don't know how to do this.
Right.
And that's when we really instituted that 3 then me.
Yeah.
And it's really to kind of protect us, because if they ask 3 of their peers, they're going to figure it out way before they get to us.
Right.
And it buys us some time, right? And it's great though, because they're actually, you know, they're taking that ownership and that responsibility for their learning, and that's the awesome part, because those are the skills that they need to take into the workforce. That's what they need to go beyond.
I like what you said about if I can figure it out in 5 minutes, they can figure it out in 45 seconds. And so when I look at something and I see, oh, this will be pretty easy for them, I give it to them and they go with it.
Sure.
And they start, like, literally, we just figured out together, and I had a picture in my presentation, how to airdrop things, because they were creating things on Book Creator, and I'm like, okay, how are they going to share this? And then when we figured out how to do it, they were just, their smiles were just huge. And then they had these, you know, libraries of books that all their friends created that they could, you know, wanted to read the next day in independent reading. So.
And the look on their face when they ask you a question, you go, I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's the empowering part, is being able to say, I don't know, and it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay that we don't know. You know, and I think that's, as educators, that's the biggest stumbling block that we have to get over, because we are used to being the owners of all the knowledge. We are the all-knowing. We are going to dispense all this knowledge to them, where it's okay to, and that was one of the things that I always tell my teachers, it's okay that you don't know. Let them do it, because I might show you Padlet, but then say, if you can come up with a better one, bring it. Let's see it. You get up and demo it. And even when we had our iPad deployment, and there was new apps that would come out, we got into the game very, very early. I mean, we were 6 years ago into the iPads. And, you know, there was always apps evolving and everything, and we'd always tell the kids, if you find a better app to do this, you come in, you do a 5-minute presentation on why that app works and what you can do with it, and then we'll implement it, and we'll start using it. So when you give them that ownership, when you give them that power, we don't have to know how to make it work.
Yeah.
We just give them the information and let them run with it.
And they figure it out.
Absolutely, absolutely.
They really do.
Well, like I said, you guys were so awful quiet that we got through really quick. If there's any questions, I'm more than happy to take any questions, or if you just want to hang out and play with some of the tools some more, you've got about 10 minutes or so. Feel free, play around with them, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to ask.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys so much.
Have you heard anything that's going to roll out for the Google Classrooms?
I haven't. I just know that I've been hearing that there's big announcements. That's all they keep saying. Big announcements come the year mark. So I'm assuming.
I do like it. I was using Edmodo with my, but I had a classroom of iPad 1s, and then Edmodo updated things, and I'd run into different errors, and it's just like, so someone said, why don't you try Google Classroom? It's in the beta right now. I was like, all right, I'll try it. So it's been a work.
It's so easy. It's so user friendly. That's what I love, is that especially draft mode on things, and you know, really the teachers have they've jumped into it and they don't have any problem with it, because it is so easy.
Since they all have their Gmail accounts, and we did our science projects on Google Slides, and collaborating with it all. It's so nice. It's actually in Google Classroom. Very easy.
And now, like I said, now that you're seeing Google Classroom expanding into other areas like Prezi, now that you can just sit there in one click and it uploads right to your classroom assignment.
That's very cool.
So you're starting to see a lot more partnerships build, which is great.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I just have to always remember that the first thing I think of, or we do with it, is not the only thing to do with it.
Absolutely.
You know, just go deeper, dig deeper with the app. You know?
And there's so many tools and resources out there that what works for me might not work for you in your classroom. That's fine.
Yeah.
But find what works with your kids and find what works in your classroom and do it. Because there are, there's 5 different ways to get to the same end result. It's just a matter of which way you want to take it. Yeah.
Very good.
Thank you again.
All right, thank you. For you guys, enjoy the rest of your day. If you're driving out tonight, be safe.